What do you think is missing in school education that you think should be included?
Is very outdated. You expect children to go sit down 8 hours, study right before examinations, don't do anything else but just study. You're actually not allowing the brain to grow for the child.
If a syllabus is not working for your child, you will know immediately. You will 100% know.
What do you think is the right age to give that mobile phone to the child?
You tell your child you should not use phone. Will you also keep the phone and come? Your children will never obey you, but they will always follow you.
I think very into my teenage years, my mom as a parent, she was very scared.
What is the biggest red flag in your mom?
Nice. Very anxious. She's more like the child. Maturity. If you move out, you get married and move out. Red flag.
Correct. What is the one advice that you will tell to parents?
Your children are the best gift you have received. Be there and allow them to blossom. Become their number one fan.
Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of the Wow Show, and today with me I have two very special guests. It's a mom and daughter duo, and the mother is Sharmila, who is a visionary who's been shaping a lot of young minds and old minds for a better future, and her daughter Ashley, who is a new age leader who's been becoming this voice of the next generation. And hi Sharmila, hi Ashley, thank you so much for being my guest today. And I know I did give an introduction for the two of you, but could you introduce yourself, by yourself?
So my name is Dr. Sharmila Anand and I'm a medical doctor by profession. I don't take care of any illness. I focus completely on wellness and I love working with kids. I strongly believe every child has a genius sitting inside of them, and if we are able to bring that genius outside, we're going to be filling our world with inspired young leaders. So yeah, that's what I do.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you. And Ashley?
My name is Ashley, and so when I was younger, I was someone that was bullied in school, didn't do really well in school. I think mom and I used to have the worst kind of fights. And then somewhere, we aligned together and then started working on personal development and all of that. Then went on, topped my 10th grade, and then mom and I wrote a best-selling book together. And then we went on and trained about 1 lakh students from 42 different countries on personal development and academics. So it's just something that, I think we're both passionate about, and, it was sweet that we ended up working together on it.
That's beautiful. That's very nice. So the thing is, I do know that if any student is coming to you, anybody of any age is coming to you, and even if the student is an average performing student, once they enter into your universe, they, in a matter of few months, they end up performing better, even in academics.
Yep.
Yes. Mainly in academics is what I assume. Yeah.
Yes.
So what is it? What is the magic that you are doing there that's making the students perform? Because I also understand that yours is not like a, like a regular tuition where students just come learn the subject and go. There is something additional that's happening there, which is like being the bridge between this averagely performing student and the star student. So what is happening there?
See, like I said, every student has that genius inside. You just have to find the spark and bring it outside. As parents, what we do is we look at all that's not all right with our children and keep finding out. But every time what we are reinforcing is telling the child they are not good in these areas. But what we do as a special secret sauce is scientifically find out what is good in the child and start building everything on top of the other and start celebrating. So I actually conducted my research with Harvard Medical School and focused on how do you really get children to believe in themselves. And when you start showing small successes, they start believing that they are capable. And then you start adding on to it. I'll give you one example. We had a district cricket player who had come and she had to go and write her 12th grade exam. She had not gone to school, homeschooled student, only 2 months for the exam. She loved cricket. She hated physics. So we just married the two and made sure we taught physics using cricket. And she started understanding the concepts, and then there was support. So it's not just teaching them, but there's a lot of elements that come in together. And when you scientifically teach any student, they will perform, period.
I totally empathize with this, right? Like like I said, I wasn't someone who was a very bright student. But then with these same science-based methods, and also I think for, kids and teenagers especially, it's not that, if they're performing badly in school, it means that they're scared or there's some sort of fear when it comes to that subject. And as long as that fear is there, no matter what you do, like getting them to perform well, it's not going to happen. So I think the first thing that we also work on is getting them these small successes in that subject that they think that they're not going to get. And then the more that fear goes away and they start becoming confident, the more you'll see that they themselves want to come and learn more about that subject.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have like a specific science-based approach
Absolutely.
towards this. And
Absolutely.
was Ashley your first?
Oh, she's my
trial?
Lab
she's my lab rat.
Okay,
So
nice.
see, I mean, as a mother, I was very concerned, and I did everything, and I did more faults than the right thing, and somehow it all pieced together. What took us 5 years, we can actually do it in lesser time. That's what now, and together now we're doing it for the kids, and it feels very satisfying. Every child who succeeds, it feels really satisfying.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, the thing is, way back when I was in school, there were very limited options where like either there was metric or state board or CBSE. And CBSE, according to, I mean, I studied initially I studied Anglo-Indian and then state board. So according to us, CBSE were these very cool kids, like that was like some other level of education or something. So that was there. So growing up, I thought, I mean, not just me, I'm sure people of my age would have thought that CBSE is the highest form of education. But today, there's so much more that's come into the picture. Like there's IB, there's IGCSE, and parents are really finding it very difficult to opt, because on one side, there is this thought that, oh, we should give them that international level of education, and on the other side there are people who are advocating, saying that today if you look at the US, it's the Indians who are going there, and the economy has grown a lot because of the Indian contribution as well. And Indians studied in this only.
Yeah.
So you need not opt for that. Oh, please don't say yeah, because my child studies international.
I studied international.
Okay,
She
so-
studied all
Okay,
I've been to 7 different schools, so
Okay.
all boards she's put me through.
Okay. What do you think would be the ideal syllabus for children of this age?
I think Ashley is the best person to answer. She's practically
done
experienced
that. Yeah,
the whole thing.
yes, yes,
Ashley, go
I
on.
would say every child individually has a board that is right for them. So I would say that every family, instead of looking at this person has put, their child in a international school or whatever it is, it's always better to choose for you and your family. So for example, if the larger, vision for your child is that they want to become a doctor, then a CBSE board would be the best option, because NEET exam is purely based on CBSE syllabus. But if, you have dreams of sending your child abroad for, their undergraduation, then maybe an international board like an IGCSE or an IB would, make more sense. And also how you want your child to study, right? So with IGCSE, for me personally, I loved studying in IGCSE because it was very application based, and I would always ask, what is the point of learning this concept? So IGCSE as a board was something where everything was, you could not get marks by just knowing the definition of something or ratta marufying anything. You had to know, if there is this concept, how do you real life apply it? So I would say, what do you want as a parent for your child, and also how is the child as a person? So these two things, if you kind of put together, then getting the right board would be easier.
That's right. Like,
Yeah.
I do have some clarity now with what you're saying. But the thing is, you have switched 7 schools.
Yeah, correct.
But most parents like me, and
Correct.
I'm going to point this towards me, I really wish my child just goes into one school and finishes
Stays.
12th,
Yeah.
and then comes out of the school.
Yeah.
Because getting the school admission is a huge
Absolutely.
task. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So, suppose my aspiration for my daughter is for her to go abroad, and that is why I'm putting her in an IB or an IGCSE or whatever. But what if that is not her aspiration? Because she's only 4 or 5. So how do I find that out?
See, that's a brilliant question. That's where you expose them to a lot of opportunities. School is only one aspect of their academic growth. There are multiple other aspects where you put them into, while there are extracurricular classes and all of that, very simple. I actually told you she was not good in academics, and I could not force her into academics. So instead, what I did was I said, okay, come, let's write a book. She was good in writing. So we wrote a book. To write a book, you need to research, you need to go, you need to concise it, write it, get that speed and all of that. After having written a 20,000 word book, going and writing a 2,000 word exam was not hard. So giving the children various exposures both inside the country and outside the country opens their mind to a lot of possibilities. And then right now she's in 4th, so she's actually experiencing the flavor of education, learning and all of that. By the time she comes to 9th, where you really give her options to understand what are the different career paths that she can experience. There are so many observerships that we can organize both inside India and outside India. And like Ashley was in her 7th grade when she went. You want to talk about when she went to Harvard?
I understand. So that is beautiful. I think, now, like, I'm not worried because I have you people for my daughter. So I'm not like, you can find out. So that is there. But isn't 9th grade a bit too late to decide about that? Like, after which, say for example, suppose at 9th, now that my daughter is studying international, in her 9th standard, suppose she says, no, I think I want to do medicine. And at that time, switching the syllabus, won't that be difficult for them to adapt?
So I'll answer this.
Please.
Yeah. So I think if a syllabus is not working for your child, you will know immediately. You will 100% know. Based on their mood, based on their marks, if you just have a conversation. I remember in 6th grade my mom had put me in one of the best schools in Delhi. Like, people could not get admissions for like the next 5 years. Somehow they got me in. But that particular school, even though it was very nice on paper, was just a school that did not work for me. And it was a CBSE board, and somehow that syllabus, that environment was just bad. So my mood completely changed. Our relationship, I would constantly have fights with her and all of these things. My grades were at an all-time low. So just for comparison, in 5th grade, I was a topper. In 6th grade, I was failing almost all my subjects. So I would say that there would be red flags to find out a lot earlier, right? So 6th grade in my instance, where you can find out, okay, this school is either not right for my child or this board is not right for my child. And when she sat and had a conversation with me, she made our entire family was against her pulling me out of that school. But I think she made that call as a parent. I think a parent intuition is there, right? She had a conversation with me, and when she put me in the next school, my grades started improving drastically because it was a different board as well. If, for example, your child isn't performing well in school, maybe the problem isn't with your child, but maybe the environment that they're in, that's not suiting them. So sometimes removing them from that school would actually help with your child's academic performance.
Awesome. Yeah. What do you think is missing in school education that you think should be included?
Now, the school education, the current school education is very outdated. Okay, it's a very bold statement, but it's very outdated, where you expect children to go sit down 8 hours, study, then right before examinations, don't do anything else but just study. You're actually not allowing the brain to grow for the child. Okay, but when you expose them to real life experiences, there's two sides of the brain. Okay, there's a logical side and there's a creative side. And if you really look at it, in our culture, there was a Gurukul system where children who, no matter where, which background you came from, you still get to a situation, you learn by doing. Okay, like that, if you can identify what is your child's learner type. Some of them are visual learners, some hear and learn, some only have to do. But our current system, it's like one size fits all.
Yeah.
Okay, and you go in 40 students, same way. Between us, if you really look at it, she can read a book and she can understand. If I open a book, I'll sleep. If I listen to the same book, I will understand.
Got it.
Same house, two different learner type. How do you
In
expect?
fact, it's your blood.
Same blood. Same blood. Okay, I want to say that will go. Anyways, but imagine 40 children sitting inside the room and the same teacher is teaching with no visuals, nothing else, not catering to the other sense, and wondering why is the child sleeping. So there's a lot that needs to change in our education system, and once a child does it and they get it, they will not forget. Knowledge is like you have to remember, but once you understand the concept, you will never forget it.
Super. So, how do you find out a child's learning type?
Okay. Basically, there are three major learning types. Either visual learning type. So for them, anything that is colorful, whatever it is, they are able to understand. There are some who are auditory. They have to listen to it. So if you're teaching your child or they're listening to a lecture, then they understand it really well. And there's kinesthetic learners where they have to do things and only then they will get it. But there's a way to, scientifically there are questionnaires that we can offer students, and they will, once you put them through the questionnaire, you understand what is the percentage. They have a mix of it. So if your child is really a visual learner, like Ashley is, and you make them listen to lectures, they are not going to understand.
Okay.
And like me, I am an auditory learner. No matter how many books you keep in front of me, I can't get it. I will only sleep. So you need to understand the learner type and help them learn accordingly. And once you get it, you get it.
Got it. At which age do you think we should start?
It keeps changing. I would say for after 6th, it will be a really nice time because they are also
6th grade.
6th grade.
Okay.
When they enter 6th grade, there's a lot of transition happening.
Okay.
So during that time, if we are able to help them get into middle school with this knowledge, then it'll be really nice.
Wonderful. I coach women on emotions.
Okay.
I train them on emotional strength, make them emotionally strong, and I also encourage financial independence.
Brilliant.
So, so it's all women who come to me, and most of them are married with children, most of them. So there was this one woman who had this question in the Q&A session where she told me that her son, who was doing his 8th standard or 9th standard, I'm not sure, he does not communicate with anybody. He is smiling only when he has his phone. If the phone is taken away, he is shutting himself inside the room. Even when he comes out, he does not communicate even a single word with anybody. And of course, the mother's heart is so shattered. And when she asked me, honestly, I did not have an answer because I personally believe only something that that I'm sure of, I can answer. Like my child is not in her 8th grade.
Yeah.
So I was not able to relate with her. So I told her, see, if I find an answer somewhere, I'm going to bring that to you. But for now, I'm sending you love. This is what I told her.
Yeah.
But what do you think can be done in this situation?
I think navigating this pre-teenage and teenage years very, very difficult. So we're also sending a lot of love to her.
Yeah.
But there could be a lot of reasons if we're looking at the why. When it comes to him, I think a lot of teenagers, they find solace in their space.
Yeah.
Sometimes as teenagers, right? And with their friends, or there could be a little bit of emotional hurt there. And I remember me being in a similar situation where I felt like she didn't understand me, and that with every change that a teenager goes through, that the only safe space that I had, or the only people who understood me, were my friends.
Yeah.
So that attachment towards your phone, all of that is there. And how does a child look at a parent taking away the phone? Is like, you're taking away my freedom, or you're taking away my happiness. It's a very difficult, scary like place to be in. But honestly speaking, it will pass. But the way that a parent deals with it at that point is also very important. So I remember one way that she dealt with it in the very beginning was she would yell at me and, confiscate my phone, or, give me lecture after lecture saying, you're being on your phone too much, when will you study? None of that worked, right? There was a point I remember where she came to me, she sat down and she started crying. And I was very confused. I was like, what is going on? And that is when that blue whale challenge, all of those things, one huge thing was going on. So basically what I'm saying is, she as a parent, from being in that pedestal that I'm your parent, you should listen to me, kind of came down to my level and started speaking to me like I was human, and like that I could really relate to her.
Nice.
And when she really told me that, I first miss you, we're not able to spend time together, where have I gone wrong, or what can I do better where you will start talking to me, or where we can start spending time together. And all that anger that I had on her, or that resentment, all of these things, when a parent is sitting to you like that and so humbly talking, you can't hold on to that anymore. And in that place, I think it was a long journey. Yeah. I don't think the closed doors or the smiling in the phone, stopped immediately. But I would say a humble conversation where you're open with your child would be a good first step.
Great. What do you think is the right age to give that mobile phone to the child?
Okay. Here's the challenge, okay? Every child at home, when they are getting into the pre-teenage year, the body is going through a lot of hormonal imbalance. And when the child is actually getting into the teen and the parent is actually at a perimenopausal age, it's a fantastic combination for disaster.
Yeah.
Okay? So, if we are looking at I will give you, you will not use, all of that, there'll only be fight at home. And the more we are fighting, the more we are telling our children, find another way, I cannot find you.
Yeah.
So that is not going to work at all. And for the child, I'll tell you, as parents, we also, I'm always telling the parents how they can make it better. Okay, so I'm always for the child, because if you really look at it, the reason the child is going and connecting with someone online is because he is not getting something at home, or he is feeling very cornered at home. I am not good enough is why I want something from the outside.
Some validation.
100%. My body is changing. Someone outside is saying I'm looking nice. Someone is talking to me with kindness, where every time when I come back, you've not done homework, you've not had food, you're not doing this, you're using phone. Everything that is negative, you're putting on the child. How will the child come and talk to you? Sorry.
I think she's crossed that stage and she's confidently telling you.
Illama, I went through this. I made all the mistakes, and that is
I agree. But see,
what is the right age?
We need to say that, right? That
yes,
you need to study.
Yes, we as a family, we create something called as a code of honor, and we say, you tell your child you should not use phone. Will you also keep the phone and come? Thank you. உங்களுக்கு வந்தா வந்து எங்களுக்கு வந்தா tomato sauce. How is this? So when your children will never obey you, but they will always follow you.
Yeah.
As parents, if you're always sitting on the pedestal and finding right or wrong, you're always going to be wrong.
Most of the education is given via iPad. Like I told my child, like, you should not watch screen. And then the next day she came back from school, she was like, Ma, I didn't watch screen, but at school they put this story on the screen.
Correct.
And I was like, that is okay.
Inside the child's mind, what's wrong with this? All these parents are like Chandramukhi. One time they are being sweet, one time they are saying the exact opposite.
And also I think there's no right or wrong either, because in school when they know that other kids are having phones or iPads or whatever, and you're not giving it to your child, there's also that peer pressure element that comes, and it's not easy being a child.
That's true. I so agree with that as
Especially
well.
in this day and age.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And just so I don't give up on the parents, it's not easy being a parent also in
Yeah.
this day and age.
Yeah.
Look at her eyes pop.
Because it's like,
Yeah,
I mean, you become responsible for this person.
Yeah.
At least till they turn 18 or something.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's okay if they make some mistakes. It's okay.
It is okay, yes. Like as you mentioned, it's not like as though I'm a saint and I've not made mistakes.
We keep forgetting that.
Yeah, so that is there. But recently there's this. Have you heard of Roblox?
Yes.
So there's this Roblox, an app where these children get into at very young ages, and they play with people from all over the world who they don't even know, and a lot of bad things are happening through that. So suppose, say my child is turning, say 10.
Okay.
And at that time she's asking a phone. And she is being honest about it. She's like, I want to download Roblox. Because my niece, who's 7, has been asking my sister that she wants to download Roblox. And she was like, you're not doing that. So suppose my child comes to a certain age and she's like, no, I want this. What do you think is the kind of conversation a parent should have with the child on terms of, in terms of safety on the internet? Because it's not like, even if we tell the child, will the child be aware of that? Because you were talking about the validation, right? Yeah. So what if there are so many predators online. What if there's somebody who's trying to be super nice to my child and she just forgets about this safety aspect because she's safe at home. So this is okay to share. She might share something and that might end up somewhere, right? And I've been hearing multiple stories like this. So what do you think is the kind of conversation a parent, as a mom, let's talk about that. As a mother, what do you think we should tell the child?
I'll tell you where this comes from. Somewhere you've got to educate them about their body.
Yeah.
And they have to be open to you. The more you are open with them and the more you are talking about what are all things happening outside. See, age appropriate conversations you start having with your children. I call it the hot conversation. Honest and open talk. Why you're telling them what you're telling is something they should know. Just saying you should not use the phone is curbing their freedom. Be very careful, because there are people like this. Like she told you about that blue whale. I don't want you to use the phone because it is hurting others. And also show them examples of what's happened to others, so they also get scared. No one wantedly goes and falls into something. What today is missing with the parents is they do not have conversations with their children. They think they are either too young or they don't have time or whatever it is. But when you get down and you have those conversations, you'll be surprised how much you can learn from them.
Yeah.
Conversations, ma. That is the best way to keep our children safe, because the more conversation you're having, the more attention they are getting, the more validation they are getting from you, the more appreciation they are getting from you. They don't have to go and seek for it outside.
Seek that outside. That's right.
And I think, kids these days are very smart. Like you said, 7, 10-year-olds are so good with using their iPads and all of that, I think one thing that us as kids we really appreciate is, instead of putting just a rule, telling us the why behind the rule as well. And the more that we understand that, the more we can, logically just be like, okay, fine. It's not like she said, it's not like you guys are curbing our freedom. Then we understand why you're doing it as well. But again, I would say that especially for younger kids, it's very easy to kind of get carried away, or so I think parental control exists for a reason, right? Rules, all of those things, 100% needed, especially for younger kids.
How do you think a child should be parenting?
Ooh. Okay. A stronger start.
Very curious.
Your mom, I mean, every mother does her best. She would have had her own set of mistakes while she raised you. What do you think you wish your mom could have done differently?
It's like,
See, I think in the initial stages, I think very into my teenage years, my mom, as a parent, she was very scared, very fearful. I think maybe it had a lot to do with the fact that I don't know if I was a girl child, or a lot with her whole concept was, this happened to me, or this went wrong in my life, so I am going to take 1000% more precaution in your life and make sure it doesn't happen to you. And while I get that a lot of parents, like, maybe something happened and they want to parent differently, I think sometimes it puts a lot of pressure on the child as well. So I would say, as a parent, understanding if the reason behind what you're doing is because you're scared or fearful as a parent, or because it's the right thing to do. So that could,
too good.
Yeah. How do you think we can maintain a friendly relationship with our parents?
so my mom.
Do you think it's a one-way street where it should start from the parents?
I think it helps if it starts from the parent, because we put, as children, we put our parents on a pedestal, thinking they're perfect, or we're not able to fully be open, or how can I be open? But sometimes, as a parent, when you take the first step and kind of open up to us about some of the mistakes that you've done in your past, or just instead of playing that full big perfect parent role, that you come down and kind of I remember in 6th grade I had failed my math exam and I was feeling so bad, because to me my mom was like this perfect student. Her, if you look at her name, her degrees are bigger than her name. So I'm like, such a smart woman, but to me, I felt like a dumb child. And I'm like, how can I face my mom? And at that time, she had 2 options. She could have either yelled at me for failing that exam, but what she instead did was she sat with me and she's like, I'll tell you a secret, in 11th grade, even I failed my math exam. And I was so shocked. I was like, I couldn't comprehend it, but it made her so much more relatable. And I think, sometimes when you guys take the first step, it gives us the space to reciprocate and be more open with you as well. But she's always said that she's a friendly parent. So she's never my friend where, I can take advantage of that. But that, I think that works. That, you're friendly, but you still have that parental role that you play.
Got it. Okay. What is the biggest red flag in your mom?
Nice.
I'm not going home.
She's like, I can give you an entire list. Which one do you want?
Yeah. Where should I start?
Sal.
Actually, I don't want to list one. Is
Yeah.
Sabba. Nalla varuvingala.
Red flag.
She's like, in her mind, sorting this.
No, it's actually hard. I don't know. I think you're nice also. Wait, I need time to answer this question.
நான் ஏதாவது டிப்ஸ் கொடுக்கவா?
Yeah.
இல்ல வேண்டாம், நீயே சொல்லு வேண்டாம். I'm curious to know. Very anxious எப்ப பார்த்தாலும். She's more like the child. ஒரு மெச்சூரிட்டியே இல்லை. If you move out, you get married and move out. Red flag.
correct.
Red flag.
She has
This obsession that parents have, you have with my marriage is insane. So I think everything will come to marriage. And you should, I mean, she's very progressive, and she'll say, go study hard, run your business well, go travel, but you should get married. Why? Because I want grandchildren.
Yeah. If you have children without marriage, கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டமா இருக்கும். I can't handle my parents. Yeah.
So
nice. Okay. What's the one secret you've never told your mom?
I can 100% tell you I don't have secrets from my mom. Like, I think the last one thing that I had that adu kuda I think
We
we recently had a conversation and I opened up about it. So
And was it always this way? Like,
no, it wasn't.
Huh.
Absolutely.
So,
like, first thing that she did was she opened up about all the mistakes that she did in her, life, especially at that age. So if I was 13, she would tell me about the things that she did when she was 13. And I think when that openness started coming, and I felt like I could trust her with my mistakes, or that she would not judge me if I opened up to her, that is when all the shields kind of dropped. And it's really nice to have that, a relationship as well. Like, to know that no matter what you do or no matter what you go through in your life, that you have that one person that you can come up to and talk to. They're always gonna be there for you. That's so powerful. And I would say that is the reason I can say that I have no secrets from her.
nice, very nice. Super. What is something about you that no one gets to see online?
Oh my God.
Or is that something you want to answer?
I will give a big answer for that. Should I?
What?
See,
Yeah.
I'll tell
please.
you.
Yeah.
In you know that I don't know what's the name, Romeo movie. I don't know if you know. I'll tell you. And the Ambi character is there, no? Very soft spoken, very Remo.
Sorry, Onion.
And the Ambi character, in front of my parents, in front of everyone, she's very sweet, very sweet, very approachable, all of that, very understanding, all of that is there. And with her friends, of course, she's like that Romeo character, like very nicely pinpoint dresses, everything. She's like,
Steady.
but with mommy alone, she's like that onion character.
Do you get angry on her?
I get angry with her.
Along
I
with
get
her.
angry on the same thing.
Together.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think because I think she's one person who I can open up to, no matter what. So no guards in front of her. So there'll be one time where randomly I'll go and I'll start crying to her about something, having like a quarter life crisis. And then, she'll take care of that. Or sometimes I'll be very angry about something and, I'll get angry with her and, so Adala, I don't think anyone else sees, but I feel comfortable to share my true self with you.
Absolutely.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Okay. So, from our conversation, one thing I'm able to understand or see about the relationship that the two of you share is that it has evolved over the years, right? So initially maybe it was a mix of both progressive and conservative parenting from your end, and then slowly the conservative part has gotten reduced and this has gotten I would say highlighted, and that worked.
Yep.
And it's beautiful. And how do you think we as parents should parent the child? Because there are so many things that have come into the picture, called, like, even when I did a course called Gentle Parenting, which talks about understanding the child's emotions. Like, if the child is throwing a tantrum, like even if the child is 3 or 4, if the child is throwing a tantrum, generally, had I not studied about gentle parenting, I would have definitely told my child to shush her, or tell her to keep quiet and things like that. But now that I've studied that, I'm making an effort to sit with her and understand her and let her vent out, and then it's okay. And this was honestly okay until she started having opinions of her own. Now I'm worried, is this gentle parenting really going to work? Because my parents were the opposite of gentle parenting. One thing about me is that though my parents were conservative, one plus that I had was my dad always understood the emotions that I brought in. It's not like he was very strict, But if I had my emotions, he was able to sit with those emotions and he was like, no, don't cry, why are you crying, and things like that. But my mom was not that person. And I mean, today I share a very beautiful relationship with my mom, but at one point when I was young, I had always felt like I was not understood by my mom. And even she knows this, like I've told her that. So, and I don't want that for my child. But at the same time, I'm worried if this is going way too much where I'm not able to say no to her. Like she gets upset even for the smallest no's. So where do you think I should draw the line?
Beautiful question, first of all. It is, I call parenting a roller coaster ride. Okay. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs and all of that. It can be scary, or it can be like you go to Disneyland, you're going on that ride together with a loved one, and it becomes fun. So you're going through it like that. So it doesn't have to be scary, and it has to evolve. When I say it has to evolve, first to understand the child, their emotional brain is what is there currently. For a child's brain to develop, it will take for them 25 years for a girl child.
25, correct.
25 for a girl child and 28 for a male child, which means their decision making center is not even present, but their emotional center is working over time. So they will have emotional outbursts, and you understanding and helping them regulate that emotion is very important to begin with. And the other part of it, scientifically I'm telling you, by the age of 3, they have come across some incidents in their life which makes them start forming their opinions. And the opinion is, I am not good enough, so I need to put up a mask in front of me. So every time something happens, they keep on putting masks, and they start believing that the mask is the one that's the opinion. Because if I tell you have to listen, I can't accept a no, because if I accept a no, that means I am not good. You can keep telling all the yeses to your child, but the minute they step outside the house, they're going to hear no's.
Yeah.
So you might as well start practicing those boundaries and make them understand why it is. When they are upset and the emotions are high, you tell them anything logical, they can't understand. But when the emotions are settled down, then when you go and have conversations with them and you start noting it down and you start appreciating the good behaviors as well, then they'll see that, okay, that's an accepted behavior, this is not an accepted behavior. Parenting is a full-time job along with all the other jobs you're doing. So your irritation you can't show on them.
Absolutely.
Your logical mind is what is needed to guide their emotional mind. So it's going to be ups and downs, but it's beautiful.
Absolutely, it is.
So
okay. I think as most mothers are always guilty about something or the other when it comes to the child. Like, maybe I should have done this better and things like that. So the one guilt that my child keeps putting on me is that you keep working all the time. Which is right. I will not disagree with her. Like, I do keep working, and it's not like, it's not like I do it on purpose. Like, sometimes that's how my work falls. Like, so what I do is that I make sure to take her on vacations where there is like zero work. I don't even look at my phone, even if it's 4 days or 5 days. I make sure I don't look at my phones except in the morning and night, just checking my WhatsApp for anything important. And I spend my whole day with her, and she expects me to do the same once we are here, which I understand as a child. Like, even today when I told her that I'll just go to the shoot and I told her I'll be back in 10 minutes, she was like, I know you'll not be back in 10 minutes. So that's something like, I mean, she's just 5, but she carries these huge emotions around, me being there for her, which I understand. But at the same time, my work is also like a necessity, and sometimes the work never stops because mine is a work from home situation. So there's no ending. So where do you think I can find that common? And she is so happy, so excited the day I'm just there with her. She's like, you just be there with me, that's enough. I can understand her need. But when I can see that I'm not able to fulfill it, sometimes, it's like I will not have an option. Like today, you have told me that you'll be coming here. I just cannot cancel because she's upset, right? So sometimes it is like I need to, and not even sometimes, most times it's like that. So what do you think I can do as a parent in that situation?
Should I take it?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Um, okay, there are two parts to this, okay? I'll tell you first my story and then I'll tell you what in general you can do. I'm a single mother. And growing up, I had the same mother's guilt that I had to work. There was no other option. But I also wanted to spend time with my daughter. So, what I did was instead of me taking time off my work, I started involving her in the work that I did and started with small internship, do this, do that. I don't know technology. She still, takes care of technology, everything. But then she started feeling my presence and she started seeing the kind of work I was doing for others, so that respect also started building up. So that was one part of it. The second part was I was very honest with her that this is the time I need to work and this is the time we have mother-daughter dates. If you have set a meeting and you will honor this meeting, you do the same thing with your daughter also and put it on your calendar.
Have meetings with your daughter.
Have meetings with your and that time you are just there. So look at it from the child standpoint. Every vacation I have my mother to myself, but after that I lose my mother. There's a sense of abandonment or a fear of loss that comes inside the child. But if she knows that every week on this time I have a mother and daughter date, she starts expecting that, and she is also, at that time, she's also not doing anything, you're also not doing anything. At the end of it, it's very important to create those memories as well. And I actually learnt it from her. One day, she's like, I know you're working, I know you're saving for me, all that is great, but are we really creating memories together? It was like on my face. And have we ever taken a vacation together? And I'm like, whoa. It was like a huge feedback to me, and I'm like, okay, come, let's go on a vacation. I have never taken a vacation. My parents have never taken vacation. So that concept was never there for me.
Understand.
And when she asked me this, it was like, okay, there is a feedback I'm getting, and how do we rectify it? So initially it was like we share 1 week between our birthdays. So we took time off, and I'm like, you moon and all without work, what will I do?
I know. Yeah.
And outside I also had to be there. But those 3 days was beautiful.
I know, yeah.
Like
yeah,
the next year it became 5 days. Then the next year I think it became 15 days. So
Nice.
we're getting
We are getting there. And it's nice. They actually make, instead of carrying that guilt around and feeling bad and all of that, we can involve them in your journey. My bottom line is, no matter how much valuable your presents are, the gifts that you give, your presence can never
That's true.
be replaced.
That's true.
But I will say, because I've been in your daughter's position, at one point. I mean, when I was younger, she was studying abroad as well. So I think there was a period about 3-4 years where I lived with my grandmother, because both my parents were studying, and I can totally relate to how she felt, right? But it gets better over time, and in the beginning, I used to have a lot of anger towards her that she thinks work is more important, or I remember in school, all the kids, their moms would come to pick them up, but for me, a helper would come and pick me up. All of these little things used to really, really hurt me. And but I think as I grew up, I also started seeing the work that she was doing, and I'm sure your daughter will start seeing the amazing work that you do, and we'll develop a lot of respect and just pride that our moms have done this, and they've worked so hard to build whatever they've built.
Yeah, I think at 5 she has gotten there.
Yeah.
Luckily, she's she draws a crown and says, "Oh, you are the queen," and things. She knows, and she's seen my work and all of that. So at least that part is quite okay.
Yeah.
So just schedule her in your calendar.
Yeah, I
Make
think
her
that
feel
should be,
like, all of these people are important, but you're my special princess. So this is first schedule that and then schedule everything around it, and your
I
guilt
think
will,
that should
would be
work.
really nice.
First
Yeah.
scheduling that and then everything, getting everything together.
Absolutely. And honor it.
Correct. So now that we've come to the end of the session, we have like a rapid fire.
Okay.
Okay. So who is more likely to wake up late? Okay. Who is more likely to cry during a movie? Oh, okay.
I'm telling you, whenever like a emotional scene comes, my eyes are.
They're not watching the movie. She's watching me.
This is
I'm like,
funnier. She's sobbing.
Who is more likely to forget an important meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
I have to put it on my calendar. Oh, this perimenopause thing is like hitting me like crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is more likely to start serious talk during dinner?
Yeah. I would say it's 50-50.
Sorry, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, he's being very reasonable.
Yeah.
Nice. Who is more likely to spend hours scrolling on Instagram?
And she'll call it research.
Who's the boss at home? Who's the boss at work?
She is the boss everywhere.
Now you know the truth. she's actually the boss at work. Isn't that?
See, I
actually allow her that space to, take the lead.
Take the lead.
Yeah,
I think
Nice.
I don't think we both do separate things that both of us are, we take charge. So we never like cross.
No, we respect each other's
The
views,
boundary. Yeah. Okay. Nice. I think I know the answer for this because I think the first time we met, we spoke about this.
Yeah.
Who takes more longer to get ready?
Yeah. It's a process.
I don't know if you remember or what, but the first time I saw you, I was like,
yeah.
oh, I love the jumpsuit. I know it's from Forever New.
Yeah.
Right? And you were like, yeah. And she was like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
She taught me how to wear makeup. Amma.
There was
Ivladha
a
I'm
point
doing.
where she had like this boy cut, like proper military mom type. She would, if you tell.
See, I had to keep her safe. Avaloda friends la, when they see me, they'll run away. Mission accomplished.
And then slowly I was like, okay, why don't you grow out your hair?
Yeah, she had to bring out the feminine side of me.
Yeah.
And I'm actually enjoying it.
No, I think,
Yeah.
I still take longer to get.
Nice. You need to complete the sentence.
Okay.
Okay. Mom always says dash.
Mom, what do you always say? I'm here for you, Papa. Yeah.
Nice. Ashley's favorite word is?
Favorite word. We'll figure it out, ma.
No, that is not favorite word.
No.
That is like a phrase.
Phrase, but that's what.
What is my favorite
What's your
word?
favorite word? I know favorite food. Favorite word.
What do I always say? ஏதாவது நான் சொல்லுவேனே ஐயோ டக்குன்னு கேட்டா வர மாட்டேங்குது
ஆமா ரெண்டு விஷயம் இருக்கு நான் எப்பயாவது கொஞ்சம் ஓவர் ஹைப்பர்ல இருந்தானா she'll stop hyperventilating. We'll figure it out, ma.
Okay. The one thing you guys always fight about. That's the common topic.
What do we fight about? What movie to watch?
No, that's not important.
Okay, what
And she'll turn on some movie. By the time the movie is like a little way through, I'll be sleeping. So it doesn't really matter.
Sorry, what do you fight
But we fight about doing more work. She'll tell me like relax.
correct.
So I'm like,
She is like a serial workaholic. And long hours and all of that.
I'm like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and she's like, she comes in, she finishes the work, and she's like,
Yeah, so I'm like, I'm finished. So I agree. We don't fight about it, but we keep having like
The
a
conversation
difference
around
of
it.
opinion.
yeah,
Okay,
difference of
okay.
opinion.
One funny memory that you both share.
Any memory, yeah.
We keep laughing the whole time. Edunalum we keep laughing. What funny memory? You want to talk about the way I scared the boy who came home?
Oh! This is funny now.
And she's proud of it, I feel.
Let me preface this by saying this is funny now. It was not funny back then.
Yeah.
So I was in school and I had one of my birthday parties where I had invited people from my class home for this small get together. And by the end of the birthday party, there was one boy who was left and three girls, and the rest of the people had left. And my mom, being my mom, we were all going to go watch a movie in my room. She made the girls enter my room. She put a chair for the boy outside the room, like right outside. She opened the door and she was like, "You can watch from here." that boy.
And that's all she knows. What happened is when he left, I had a conversation with him and I told him, Thambi, don't have any feelings for Ashley because nothing will
Because
ever work.
she knew that this boy liked me, and then she literally scared na. He was, I don't even think he spoke to me for the next like 3
And the
months.
best part was, this boy goes and tells everyone in school, இந்த பொண்ணை வேணா ஹேண்டில் பண்ணிடலாம் பொண்ணோட அம்மாவை ஹேண்டில் பண்ண முடியாது.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Horrible. Like, what was he going to do? We were like 4 girls
Ashley,
in the room.
why do you carry a life jacket in the flight?
Mom logic.
I am a doctor. You first take precaution before you.
Wow.
Very nice. Like, good tips. The moment that made you proud of her. Any good moment.
So many. I remember, I think I was like 4 or 5 years old at that time. I watched my mom graduate in the US on on a video conference, and I remember I was very tiny, but even at that point, I was just like, I think I stood up like, taller and prouder, and I was like, one day I want to be like her. She looked so pretty, and I think she was getting the best student award or something like that, and I was just so happy. And all that pain of not having her come pick me up from school or be there to tuck me good night and all of that vanished, just seeing that one.
That was nice.
Things.
Beautiful. That's very nice. And any moment of yours where you were very proud of her?
Many moments. It's like every time you see me watching her, I will be literally
Admiring her.
and like really looking at it and saying, yeah, what a beautiful intelligent, kind girl she has turned out to being. And so it's like when I was sitting in that 6th standard classroom and she had failed all subjects, and her teacher told me that you have a socially incapable child, nothing can come out of her, you put her in a in a special school. And that day I decided that I was not going to let the world determine what my child can do or cannot do. And ever since, I've just been there and allowed her to blossom out. And when she wrote a book at 14, when she went abroad and trained, and when she mentored 10,000 kids all on her own, it's like, as a parent, you just you're filled with joy. So I would not say one moment. It's like every day I admire the things that she does, and I am who I am because of her.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes. Truly.
Yes.
We'll finish with this one thing, and that is, what is the one advice that you will tell to parents, and what is the one advice you will tell to parents? Right.
Go for it.
Me first.
You
first. I need time to prepare.
Your children are the best gift you have received. Be there and allow them to blossom. Become their number one fan. Every day, I know it's one advice you ask, but then when you are their best fan and you're cheering for their growth and you're allowing them to grow by themselves, you'll be surprised how much of genius is coming out. So you should wait to see the magic happen. Don't keep finding fault with them.
True.
Yeah,
Nice.
because what the world says doesn't matter to the your child, but what you say matters a lot. So be very careful what you're saying. Yeah.
Right, right.
Okay.
And you, Ashley?
Advice.
Advice to parents.
Where do I begin?
Yeah, this is like, I have so much I want to give your parents.
I think I would just say that I know sometimes it's very difficult to parent us.
Agreed?
Not sometime.
Thank you. Yeah, you never know when mothers get together.
But I would say that one thing that I would hope that parents do is if you can let your children know that you're there for them no matter what, that you will not judge them, that you will not, disown them, no matter what they do, what problem they end up in. And if your child knows that, anything I can call my mom and my dad, that would be the biggest gift above anything else that you can give your child, because that is in itself such a power that your child will have. So yeah, that is one thing that I would
Beautiful.
hope for the relationship.
Very nice, beautiful. So thank you, both of you, for doing this for me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank
It's my
you.
pleasure. It's just that, today's conversation, I was so engaged into it this because maybe I have a child of my own. So it was like, I don't know, like every single moment was like a bulb-on moment for me.
Aww.
So it was very nice, and the thing is, it was eye-opening at so many places, it's all the same, bulb-on, eye-opening, I could keep adding. So thank you so much for bringing your honest selves to the room. It's not like, you wanted to polishly say something, it was not that. You were just being yourselves and giving a piece of what was really going on in your mind to every single one of my questions. So thank you for being that honest self of yours to the two of you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.